And I'm thinking that maybe we'll introduce ourselves while we're on camera, so people at least know who the voices are who are speaking. So my name is Sam Gold, and I'm the Executive Director of the Lower Connecticut River Valley Council of Governments. We also go by the name RiverCog. So, joining us tonight is Ann Galbraith, who is our project manager. And Ann, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. My name is Ann Galbraith from ASG Planning. I'm the manager of this study.
Great. And then also from our consultant team, we have Ian Kolsinakis.
Ian Kolsinskis, and I'm with Nelson Nygaard, a consulting firm working on this project.
Great. Let's see. We can get started. And Rob, I'm also going to make you a co-host for this meeting. If people need to be admitted to the meeting, please feel free to admit them.
Sure.
Great. All right. Just for housekeeping, for people who are joining us, if you could type in your name into the chat box, we'll record you as attending this meeting. So thank you very much. All right. So we're going to get started here. All right, so good evening and welcome. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. This is a culmination of about 1.5 years of work on the Lower Connecticut River Valley Transit Study. And I first want to thank the Connecticut Department of Transportation for generously funding this project and providing us support along the whole way. And this is a project of the Lower Connecticut River Valley Council of Governments, RiverCog, along with 9-Town Transit, that is a service of Estuary Transit District, and Middletown Area Transit, which is Middletown Transit District. We have a very capable project team of consultants from Nelson Nygaard, ASG Planning, and the Maintenance Design Group, HDR. So this is an overview of our evening's presentation. We're going to give you an overview of the study and the study's recommendations. And then we're going to get into the meat of tonight's event, which is potential service improvements. These service improvements or changes are what's posted on the project website, which is lcrvtransitstudy.org. Where you can weigh in and take a survey and look at these proposals in greater detail. And you can send comments directly through the website. You can also send comments to us a variety of different ways, which we'll get into later. And then the third section of this will be questions and answers. So for question and answers, we ask you, if you're participating in the Zoom meeting, to type your questions into the chat box. At the end of the first 2 parts of the presentation, we will read each question and then provide answers. If you are joining us on television, we would like, and if you are joining us by television, we ask you to text us your questions. And that phone number for texting questions is 860-618-3676. And all this information will be repeated later on in the presentation. So I'm now going to turn it over to Ann Galbraith, our project manager from ASG Planning, and she will give a presentation on the study and the recommendations. So Ann, if you'd like to take it over.
Hello, everyone. As Sam said, I'm going to give you a brief overview of our study and the recommendations that have been made to date. Oops. I'm sorry, Sam, can you?
Oh, yeah, I'll change the slides for you.
Advance it, or yeah, thank you very much.
No problem.
This is our study area. You can see it corresponds roughly with the RiverCog planning region. you can see the Middletown area transit routes in the northern part of the region centered around Middletown, the 9-town transit routes operating mostly along the shoreline between Madison and New London. 9-town transit also runs 2 routes connecting the shoreline with Middletown. And a number of these communities also have dial-a-ride service, ADA paratransit service, or the new extra mile on-demand pilot service. Next slide, please. So our study started about 1.5 years ago in the winter of 2019, and we spent the first 6 months collecting a lot of data on ridership patterns and ridership and analyzing that data. We also spoke to customers on board the buses and other stakeholders and prepared an assessment of existing conditions, both in terms of service that's operating on the street today, bus service, as well as how each of the districts operates the administration and management of the 2 districts. We held the first round of public outreach in September 2019. And since that time, we have prepared recommendations and a report on a number of potential alternatives for the administration and management of the districts, including construction of facilities. That report is complete and available on the website. We also prepared and evaluated a number of potential ideas for improving service across the region, and that is what we will share with you later tonight, and that we're hoping to get your comments on. Once we get those comments and finalize our service report, the study will be complete later this summer. The key study documents are on the website, LCRVtransitstudy.org. 2 of the key documents are that assessment of existing services and conditions that we call the state of the systems. The final report covers administrative and management alternatives and recommendations. And once we collect your comments over the next few weeks, we will finalize and post the service improvement report. So the study goals mainly are to achieve long-term financial stability for these 2 small transit districts and to improve their overall operational effectiveness. We're all aware that public transit is publicly funded, and we want to make sure that taxpayer dollars are used in the most appropriate and effective fashion. Both districts are in need of new or upgraded facilities. 9-town transit today has no permanent home or maintenance facility to take care of its fleet. Middletown does have a maintenance facility and a headquarters in Middletown. However, it is not large enough to accommodate any more growth, and it is in need of some other equipment upgrades as well. So we believe if there is a way to improve the overall operational effectiveness, that in turn could create opportunities to improve bus service for riders. And I'll just give you a quick overview on the next slide of the options we looked at. I'm not going to go into detail, but in terms of administration and management and facilities, we looked at a number of options as to whether these 2 districts would operate independently or share functions. And there's a lot of detail posted on the materials on the website if you care to view these alternatives. But in a nutshell, the findings of our study on the next slide will show you that as more functions are shared across the region, we've found that efficiencies can be achieved. If facility construction costs are shared and facilities are shared, obviously the investment requirements will be less, and operating costs on an ongoing basis will be less if there's one district sharing functions rather than 2 independent districts staffing up and appropriately staffing new facilities. By eliminating redundancies in terms of management, financial services, mechanics at garages and such, resources are saved and can in turn be used to create new positions to enhance the technical capacity of the transit districts and potentially to offer more bus service. The study is now recommending a merger. It is recommending that Middletown Area Transit and 9-town Transit merge and become one larger regional transit district. What this means is that staff, facilities, and vehicles would be shared across the broader region. At this point, this is just a recommendation in our report. the transit district boards of both transit districts and the municipalities that are members of those transit districts need to vote and approve such a merger before it would move forward. If it did move forward, an expanded headquarters and maintenance facility would be built in Middletown, and a new shoreline operations center would be built most likely in the Westbrook area. These administrative changes in and of themselves would not have any impact on service, nor would any layoffs be anticipated. In fact, we believe new positions will be created. Next slide, please. So what happens next? As I mentioned, any recommendation to merge as one larger entity must be approved not only by the two transit districts, but by the communities that are members of those districts. If this were to happen, the merger would likely take about 2 years before it became permanent. Once that happens, riders would begin to see some changes across the region. You would be able to make a trip with one fare across the region without paying twice. Dial-a-ride and ADA services would be regionally operated. And it's also possible that the board of directors for this larger agency would want to rebrand the name of or the color scheme of the districts. They could choose to keep one of the existing names or potentially to rename it. But these are decisions that would be made later and certainly announced broadly to the public at the time. But most importantly, as if and when a merger does occur, we believe that efficiencies will be realized over time that will provide opportunity to improve service, whether that's more hours of service, new extra mile zones, the on-demand transit service operating now down in Old Saybrook, or other new local bus routes, or enhanced technologies that make riding the bus more convenient, comfortable, and customer friendly could be introduced. So I'm now going to introduce my colleague, Ian, who will walk you through some of our ideas for service improvements in some detail, so we can then hopefully get your comments either at the end of this presentation or via our website or the phone call messages that Sam pointed out. We will give you that information at the end of Ian's presentation.
Thank you, Anne. So I'm going to be talking about some of these potential service improvements. So just from a starting point, these are based on both us understanding the existing systems from looking at data, looking at the schedules, but most importantly from talking to you, the members of the public and the riders. So we've taken a number of efforts in order to understand what your needs are. So this included riding the routes and giving an onboard survey to passengers. We also had a few different online surveys that folks were able to participate in. We went out into the community and talked to some members and stakeholders. And then we actually had a chance to meet some of you in person at some pop-up events that we did in the Middletown area and along the shoreline. So we talked to riders to find out, why you're using transit, where you're going, where you want to be going, and then started to talk about some of the trade-offs of if service will be improved, where would you like to see those improvements? So some of the things we heard were that there's an interest in starting Sunday service. So neither of these systems has Sunday service right now, but folks seem like they might want that. You also expressed an interest in seeing buses coming more often than they are now, and also the possibility for more service on Saturdays as well. Longer hours is something that was of interest, both routes starting earlier in the day and ending later in the day. And then also having more information about when buses are arriving. And then finally, we did hear that people would like, better places to sit and wait for buses. So there's sort of 3 categories of changes that we're kind of considering in this study. So these are changes that if more funding becomes available, could potentially be implemented. So the first types of changes are network changes, and these have to do with the streets that buses are running on and where they're stopping, and making routes run the same in both directions instead of looping routes, so that the inbound and outbound stops are across the street from each other. Another category is increasing service levels. So this is about, when buses are running, the times of days of the week, and finally, the potential for some new services. So we'll talk about possibility for a new Old Saybrook local route, new on-demand extra mile zones, as well as possible community shuttles. So I'll begin with going through some of our ideas for changes for shoreline routes. So Route 641, you can see the existing route and then a potential idea change. So this is the highest ridership route for the 9-town system. For this one, our idea is a simple change, and essentially is to take the existing service in Old Saybrook and instead run that on a new local route. There's also potential for earlier and later trips on this route. Route 642, again, this is a simpler change. So taking those existing service segments in Old Saybrook and then running that separately with the new route. We want to make sure that there's an easy transfer in Chester Center between 642 and Route 644. There is the potential to discontinue the Ivoryton branch because there aren't many people riding that section today. Route 643, this is a bigger improvement, as you can see. So our idea is to streamline this service between Old Saybrook and New London. So it would act more as an express route to get folks quickly and easily between those 2 points. There would still be stops along the way, Old Line Marketplace, Park and Ride, and in Flanders, for example. We'd also potentially discontinue the diversion to Rogers Lake because there is very low ridership along that section today. Route 644 between Old Saybrook and Middletown. Again, this is a larger change. So this would be more of a streamlining, again, of the route, make it more like an express service. So there'd be still stops in Old Saybrook, Chester Center, and Middlesex Community College, and then Middletown, and potentially discontinuing the segments in Chester and Haddam in order to speed up travel for most of the riders along the route. Route 644, this is a smaller change. So mainly it's to make the route run consistently along Route 9 into Middletown, and then having the route end in Clinton Center rather than in Madison as it does today. So if riders needed to get from Route 645 to Madison, they could transfer to Route 641 in Clinton. And that way the service isn't duplicated. So now I'll talk about some of the changes for routes in the Middletown area. So Route 581 is the highest ridership route in the MAT system. So our idea is to turn this into a two-way service instead of a loop as it is today. And this would make it easier to get to and from the destinations along Saybrook Road and the Connecticut Valley Hospital. So turning it into a two-way service would mean discontinuing segments on Millbrook Road and Randolph Road, which today don't have many riders. And this would maintain stops at Middlesex Community College, the Saybrook Road Medical Centers, Stop and Shop, and the hospital. Route 582, again, our idea for this is to turn it into more of a two-way service. So from the MAT bus terminal down to the Department of Social Services. And so the route would still be serving the senior center in Middletown and the destinations along South Main Street. And so we'd potentially be discontinuing segments on Russell Street, Ridge Road, and Randolph Road because of the low ridership. And one of the, an area that is served today by this route that instead we would serve with Route 583 would be Sant'Angelo Circle, Daddario Road, and Long Lane, as you'll see in the next route. So rather than having Sant'Angelo Circle, Daddario Road, and Long Lane served by 582, instead we'd think maybe they could be served by 583. Along with that, this route would be able to serve the Washington Street Shopping Plaza, possibly only the Southern Shopping Plaza to have direct access. It would still stop outside the Northern Plaza. And the route would end at the Sagamore Hills Apartments. So we did see that there's very low ridership on Balfour Road, Cogden Street, Ridgewood Road, and Camp Street. So we would potentially discontinue those segments. Route 584 is the second highest ridership route in the MAT system. So here we're sort of thinking of a small change. The main part would be having more of a two-way service through the north end of downtown for more convenient for the people living there, as well as having a simplified route at the northern end of 584 in order to make it a little easier to get to the shopping plazas and grocery stores around there. Route 585. So our idea for a change here is to better serve Berlin Road. So we would recommend more of a two-way service, so folks would be able to easily get on and off the route anywhere along that segment. And there's also potential to run the route later into the evening to better serve workers. And this route would potentially still be serving Walmart and FedEx as it does today. So Route 586 through Portland and East Hampton. We want to turn this into a two-way service as well. So there'd be just one alignment throughout the day to get folks from Portland and East Hampton and down to Middletown Bus Terminal. So we would potentially be ending the route in East Hampton Center. And we might discontinue the deviations to Lake Drive and North Main Street because not many people are riding in those areas today. And then finally for the current MAT system, Route 590. So since this route was changed just in the last few years, we're not recommending any large changes here, but we would say this route could potentially serve some local stops along Washington Street in Middletown, maybe not going directly into the shopping plazas anymore, but would still be stopping on the streets in front of them. And then potentially a simplified end at the Meriden Transit Center. So those are our ideas for current routes. So now I'll talk a little bit about some of our ideas for new services. As I mentioned before, we do have an idea for a new route in Old Saybrook. So this could be called the 640 Old Saybrook Local. And what this would do is take segments from the ends of routes 641, 642, and 643 and combine them into one route. So all destinations in Old Saybrook can be accessed from it. So that could include the industrial park, Old Saybrook Station, Stop and Shop, the senior center, and then destinations along Main Street and Maple Ave down to the shore. And there's the potential for this route to pulse with some of the other routes at Old Saybrook Station in order to have an easy no-wait transfer to the other routes in the 9-town system. There's a potential to have some new community shuttles as well. So a shuttle in Middletown would be from some parking lots around the town towards downtown and the MAT terminal. So this could connect the North End, Middlesex Hospital, Wesleyan University. And then in Old Saybrook, there could also be a summertime shuttle. So this would connect Old Saybrook Station to the marinas and down to the beach. And then finally, for the new improvements, there could be some new extra mile on-demand zones. So extra mile is a service down along the shoreline now that customers can request rides using a smartphone application, a website, or calling 9 Town Transit and be picked up and taken to where they need to go. Right now it's operating in Old Saybrook and Westbrook, but there's potential to serve some new areas, including the shoreline around Old Lyme. So if Route 643 is more of an express route, then extra mile could be able to take folks around Old Lyme where they need to go. Chester, Deep River, and Essex, so this could provide some extra service along the Connecticut River there. And then also potential for a zone in Middletown to connect Wesleyan and the shopping centers to downtown. So those were some of the ideas that were sort of alignment based about where the buses are going and where they're stopping. But there are other potential improvements, and these ones we especially need your input on to know the best way of doing this. So if there are more funds available, buses might be able to run longer hours. And so this could mean a bit more service on all of the routes. It could also mean a lot more service only on some key routes. There could be more service on weekends, maybe on Saturday evenings, maybe on Sundays. There'd also be potential for better connections and transfer points between routes. And then there's also the potential for having more information on when buses are arriving and leaving. So please gather any ideas you have or your thoughts on our ideas, and let us know what you think. So again, you can take a survey on the project website, lcrvtransitstudy.org, and the survey will let us know, what your thoughts are on some of our service ideas. And you can also type into the chat box if you're watching this live, or you can text or call into the voice number to let us know.
Good, thank you, Ian. So I know we've shared with you a lot of information on potential routes. All this information is posted on the Lower Connecticut River Valley Transit Study.org website. I'm going to share with you now 2 ways to ask us questions or to share your comments. The first one is if you are watching this broadcast live on Wednesday, July 22nd. Sam, if you could advance the slide for me, please. Thank you. If you are watching this broadcast live on Wednesday, July 22nd, you can ask us a live question and we will answer it right now. Many of you may be watching this broadcast at a later date, and I will share with you some information about how to give us comments after Wednesday, July 22nd. But the 2 ways to ask us questions, I'll do it right now. If you are watching a recorded broadcast, you may visit the website, lcrvtransitstudy.org, take the survey that Ian showed you, submit your comments that way, or you can call 860-662-4368 and leave a voicemail with your comments by any time between now and August 8th. If you go back up to the previous slide, the way to join us now would be to go to the website and click on the Zoom meeting link, and you will see a chat button once you enter the room, and you could type in your question, or you could text a question or comment to us at 860-618-3676. Again, you could text a question to 860-618-3676 or a comment about anything you've heard tonight. So looking at the chat box, we have no live questions as of yet. We will give people time to either text a question to us or to enter a question through the chat box on our live session.
And while we're waiting for questions, I would like to take the opportunity to welcome a couple representatives from the Connecticut Department of Transportation. We have Dennis Solinsky joining us. Welcome, Dennis. And we also have Maureen Lawrence. Both of them have been key partners in this project, and we're very grateful for your involvement, your support, and that your ability to join us this evening. So thank you. So,
Sam, maybe if you share the next screen.
okay. If you would like to get the word out about this presentation, we're trying to reach as many people as possible. This is going to be shown a number of times on the community access stations in the Valley Shore communities, and also in the Middletown cable access, channel 15. And we are also trying to get this out on Lyme and Old Lyme's cable access as well. This is also being live streamed on the Ninetown Transit Facebook page, where it will be archived. It will also be on the LCRV transitstudy.org website, and that should be up there live later this evening. Since we know that there is not unlimited funding for transit, right now everyone is actually hurting, but we do want to know if we were to make improvements to routes, to service times, the days of service, where you would put those dollars. We can't do everything, but we want to know what are the priorities for the riders of the service and for our communities. So when we're in a position to invest more in our systems, that we know what the priorities of the riders are. Because as I already said, providing additional extra mile zones or expanding service into the evening or on Saturdays or new Sunday service all cost money. And in all likelihood, if there is any expansion of service, we'll have to pick one or two. We won't be able to do all of them. So your feedback is key in helping us prioritize what investments are made in the systems. So let's see, have you received any questions?
I do have one question from Lori, is asking if the current situation with COVID-19 in terms of health and safety, as well as police security, if that was part of the study. This study actually started in 2019 and is near finished. So we have not looked at the specific, as part of this study, have not looked at the specific health and safety as it relates to COVID-19. I do know that both districts are working very hard to take a number of measures to, as well as the DOT at the statewide level, to take a number of measures to protect the health and safety of all the riders. If someone else wants to weigh in on some of the specifics.
Yeah, I can continue on that. We on both systems, ridership is down as more people either are staying home, sheltering in place, or fewer people are employed, or more people are working from home. And then also as schools and places of business have been shut down. Our hope is that ridership will rebound once COVID-19 is over. Although it's a good point, Leslie, that we don't know what the future will look like. It is developing. Our plan is to plan for a robust transit system for the people who rely on it. Joe Comerford, who is the manager of both Ninetown Transit and the Middletown Area Transit districts, He is joining us. I don't know if you have anything to add, Joe.
Hello. So I was going to say that the one of the strongest services through the whole pandemic and is coming back the strongest is the extra mile service. So it appears that that has a lot of potential and maybe it is can play an important role going forward as we deal with this pandemic.
And for those of you who have not ridden Extra Mile, it is our tagline for it is it's Uber and Lyft for the rest of us. It's transit, but on your schedule. We give you a pickup time and an arrival time to your app, so you know when you'll be picked up, when you'll be dropped off, and it works differently than traditional transit because it can serve in an area. It doesn't serve a long stretched out route, but it could be a different way of providing transit service that is more convenient to riders and because it's more flexible. So we're very excited about the successes we've seen at Extra Mile in Old Saybrook and Westbrook and parts of Essex. And we're hopeful of expansion in other parts of the region. And maybe that, if that is part of the feedback we hear from you as part of the study, that will be taken into consideration. So for those who have ridden Extra Mile and those who have just heard about it, we'd like to hear what you think about the service and what you think of that concept, and if that's something that you would prioritize. So let's see. Any other questions? I don't see any questions yet. I don't know if we do have some more time on this presentation. If at the talk, I don't know if I can introduce Dennis Zielinski if you would like to say a few words.
Yeah, I'd just like to say, commend you guys for a strong public process here and giving folks the opportunity to weigh in and understand what this is. Thank you, Sam, for your leadership there from the inception of this. And I think that this study, the results of this study are going to be beneficial for us, not only from this study itself, but how we do studies in general with the DOT. And we had a really good partnership with the community throughout the process. And I think your leadership, Joe's leadership, had a lot to do with that. So, we're happy with the outcome. I'm excited to present the study to the commissioner and deputy next week. And, we think we're going to roll forward with some real improvements now for the region.
Thank you very much, Dennis.
Yeah, in light of the barking dog. I just finished by saying I think it's that we've got a lot of good things for the region, and we know we're going to be successful. Both agencies are finally going to become the agencies that they need to be.
Well, thank you very much. So while we're waiting any questions from the public, I would like to share with everyone show the project website. Let me get that set up, and I can give you a tour of where to find various documents for the project. Just wait 1 second, and I will share that with everyone. So as I mentioned, the website is LCRV transitstudy.org. That redirects you to the RiverCog, the Lower Connecticut River Valley Council of Governments website. And you will find out right on top, check out our route change proposals, give us our feedbacks. So you click on that. And you see a link for tonight's Zoom meeting, and then information about this presentation. And then we have an online survey you can click on. And then there's links to both the proposed changes for the Middletown area and for the Ninetown area. And then here again is another link for the survey. Also, you'll find the comment box on the website. Put your name and email address and type in your comments, and we will receive them and take them into consideration in the final study. Also on the website, also on the project website, we'll go back to that main page. You will find a description of the study, of the towns that are in the districts, and what we're trying to do here. You will also find a project executive summary, the final report regarding discussion of the merger of the districts and of the maintenance and operations facilities. And then an appendix that goes through the scenarios that we considered and the evaluation that we did to come up with our preferred alternatives. And you'll also find project maps and project timelines. So also you can click on view study materials and you'll find the final study reports. This is where the final report that includes these service proposals will be posted. These are where you find the documents, route changes, proposals that Ian presented just a few minutes ago, maps of the study areas. This is what we call the state of the system report, which is an overview of the two bus company systems. The results of our first round of public outreach, and then a route by route overview of the routes. And since this project was started or early in 2019, we have both the old and new numbering for Middletown. So we hope you are able to check out these web pages and the resources that we're putting up there. We will also be posting the recording of this Zoom meeting to the project website as well. So let's see. I don't know if anyone has asked any other questions, and I have not received any texts. So let's see. If there's anything else that I don't know if Anne or Ian or Joe want to add, I think we should hang around for a few more minutes to see if anyone has any thoughts that they want to share with us before we say goodnight.
Sam, maybe you could share the screen one more time of that gives the information about how to comment, and just leave that up so people
Definitely
can see that information one last time.
Sure.
But that was a great tour of the website.
Let me go back. Right now, if you're watching this live on the evening of the 22nd, you can send a text or you can type in the chat box in the Zoom. But more likely, if you're watching a recording of this, you can go to the project website at lcrvtransitstudy.org, or you can leave a message at 860-662-4368. And you can leave us a message about your comments about these different service ideas, or anything else that you have regarding about the information that we presented in this presentation about the merger and facilities for our transit districts. So let's see. I'll call it a few other people that we have joining us this evening. We have Rob Harriman, who's our senior transportation planner. We also have our regional mobility manager. I don't know if you want to say hi, Lori. Feel free to do so.
And Sam, this is Joe again from Ryantown Transit and Middletown Transit. I just want to emphasize to people how important it is to comment, take the survey, because as Sam said, there really is a menu of options here, some really great potential improvements, but there certainly won't be funding to do them all. So it's really important to us that we hear what the public's priorities are, because that's how we will make our decisions going forward. That's what's going to guide us as we move forward and improve this organization. So it's really critical that people take the time to take the survey or send us comments so that we know we're doing what the public wants us to do.
So thank you very much, Joe. That your input is incredibly important as we go to the state, and we go after state and federal dollars, and also city and town dollars to provide this service to people. We need to know what is important to the riders, so that money is invested well. So, but before I go, I'll let Lori, our regional transit mobility manager, just say a few words if you'd like.
Thank you. So I go into all the south central towns, starting in Old Lyme, going all the way up through the Havens. And I listen to people's gaps and barriers that exist in the towns. And one of the great things about your region is that pretty much you're doing everything correct. You use me as a regional mobility manager to go in and create relationships and listen to people. And I've built a lot of really strong bonds in my time. It's just been a year now. But I'm available to come into your towns and talk about transportation and have Zoom PowerPoints that are specifically for your region and what exists. I've really been wanting to get into Vista, but because of COVID, it's been a little tricky, but I have a monthly report that's due, so DOT really wants to see that I'm making the connections. And so we're at this time of COVID, how have I been able to reinvent myself and still reach out to the seniors who are very lonely and still very much need their medical transportation. So again, it was about building connections and finding out other people. Maybe the senior centers don't have their senior volunteers, but they did have students who needed school credit and who are now taking over the volunteer for driving. So it's been an interesting time, and I'd love to talk to anybody here or in the community about transportation and how I can help you connect the dots to stay connected.
And Lori, we're happy to share your contact info on our website, so we'll make sure that that's up there for people who want to follow up with you, or if you have any contact info you want to share right now, feel free.
Yeah, I'm kind of old-fashioned. I use my own information. So my cell number is 860-333-7302. I answer my phone pretty much 24/7. Well, maybe not 20. I do need to sleep.
So please call during daytime hours, everyone.
Daytime hours, and I'm really dedicated and want to help people in all situations. So I'm available by email as well. M as in Mary, CELWEE @kennedyctr.org. Thank you, Sam.
You're welcome. Thank you for joining us. So, all right, before we close this presentation for the evening, I just want to give anyone an opportunity to send us to type in a question in the chat box, or to text me a question. And but if not, we will be monitoring our mailbox and the voicemail between now and August 8th. So please get the word out. To everyone that you think would be interested in this, please take the survey and get back to us with what you think is important for investments for transit. So, all right. If there's nothing else to add, I would like to thank all the participants and presenters, Anne and Ian, and thank you, Joe and Dennis. And Lori. Thank you to Chris at Valley Shore Communications Television for facilitating this telecast on Valley Shore, and the recording to be broadcast on Middletown Cable Access. So we're very appreciative of your help and support. And once again, if you please check out our website, LCRVTransitStudy.org. Or call us at 860-662-4368 and leave a voicemail with any comments you may have. So with that, unless there's anyone else who would like to speak, I will wrap up this presentation. All right, so I will take that as a no. So thank you once again. I appreciate everyone taking some time out of their evenings to be with us. And we look forward to your comments as they come in over the next 2 weeks. So thank you very much, and be well. All right, good night.